The issue is trust of reporting, trust of sincerity, of some level of honesty and not exaggerations in news journalism positions, where somehow the standards for trying to give people news that they can apply versus give people news that they could fundraise over or get votes, this trust has been broken.
Yeah, absolutely. I see people like trusting news too much. Like if it's on the news, then it's true. And then you have the other side where people don't trust anything that's on the news.
Mm-hmm. So if you have trust and mistrust now, so people end up trusting stories that make them feel secure, or they're using trust to get an emotional reaction instead of trying to trust to see what really happens. And then if you fall into this pattern of trusting something that emotionally gives you hopes or emotionally regulates you, you don't want to find out you're trusting a distortion. So you just keep jumping to the next conspiracy, to the next exaggerated speaker, the exaggerated person that's giving you, playing the mother, the caregiver, the person that is going to offer stable, consistent information and grounding. So you'll trust somebody who's tribalistic on either side, right, left, middle, whatever, somebody who's distorting the story to give you excess certainty, to give you a sense of security.
How does this sit in with what we deal with these stories that we get that are completely overblown in this group? Like when we had some of, because I was looking back at some of the stuff with Ellie, with me, at the Qantas Lounge, and this thing that she ran about me spearing to her heart when all I did was send her to bed. Is that does that vector into this? Because it feels like it does a bit.
Well, it's taking up all the space. The emotional urgency, the RSD, the rejection sensitivity dysphoria, spear to the heart, that hijacks, where is it? That floods with a bunch of moral noise. So it's a bunch of moral outrage that says, because it feels true to my heart. Psychic equivalency, using mentalization-based therapy. It feels like it's true. If I act like it's true and I flood the space with the truth, then that's the argument. And then if the argument is, if you're making a victim plea argument and you make it fast enough, then the other person has to defend themselves against the plea without the evidence. And if the person argues back, then that person is deemed as guilty. That's what Tim put me in, this trap of deflection. So he said, Deef is deflecting. So then if I give any answer that doesn't fall into his frame, you can say, look, I was right. You're deflecting. If I challenge his evidence, that would be perceived as deflection. So it's a bit of, I guess that's the double bind. So that's a game rig. So if I phrase a moral outrage and flood the space in a way that puts the person I'm accusing in a double bind, that any answer they give is validation of the accusation.
So the trap.
And if I can get the group to, either freeze or join along, like, you know, Mouse even like joked, like, or laughed at the double bind. So seeing a good double bind triggers people's inner children, like, oh, wow, this is something dramatic.
So when you don't when you don't buy into it, so this is what I'm trying to get at. What I think I do is I ruminate on why they're doing that and try to make sense of it. I think that's the trap, for me anyway. Because they're making so much noise and so much drama that takes
Well,
up all the space.
in the past, I said the way out was co-historian. Today, the argument is, I think the way out is you need epistemic trust. So you need people that are reliable that you can go to as sounding boards, or you have video that you can go to as neutral information, so that you repair your reality testing, you repair your epistemic confidence.
I'm not crazy, I think that should say.
Yeah, I'm not crazy, but you have to, if you've been crazy made as a child, you still have buttons of being crazy made. So to rebuild that infrastructure from the ground up means you have to do a bunch of work to get stable reality testing, to get to some level of epistemic confidence. Because even if you have a lot of epistemic confidence and you have a whole group, or you have a systematized reputation destruction, all these other techniques that flood you with a bunch of moral outrage and double binds and stonewalls, you'll still, because part of our reality testing is to outsource.
So this is what happened with Ellie and me a couple of times, and this is a bit what the schizoids do, isn't it?
Well, that's the schizoid's dominant frame. That's it's a backdoor of a core need. So if the first need is attention and acceptance, so if you reject somebody's acceptance and you destroy their ability to have epistemic confidence of what you say and what they think is true, then now their ground of knowing is unstable.
So that's what they're trying to do to me and you and everybody else.
I think that's what we've learned, the rules of trauma bonding. That's the rules of trauma bonding. They do it, but I think once you fall into survival instincts of trauma bonding, anything goes. And part of that is any sort of denials of all five of these things is a way to harm the other person. And it's just like a survival game. But I'm arguing today, maybe it's not the 5 A's. The thing is epistemic grounding, epistemic honesty. Epistemic truth is the grounding fundamental. Because if we don't know what's going on, if we don't have basic trust and mistrust, if we don't have basic hope of interconnected, we got to share information together. And instead, we're just going to self-gaslight, and we're going to gaslight each other, and we're going to try to fall for other people's gaslighting. Then where's the foundation? Where can we relax? Where can we say, okay, I mapped out everything, I know what's sort of going on, I can accept more chaos? Instead of, oh, I got to hold on to this and that because there's too much chaos. We're always in this hyper worried situation because.
Well, the other problem is the double bind with them, because no matter what you do, if you agree with it, you're fucked, and if you don't agree with it, you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that's sort of the framing game. So this is a hijack of a framing game. So if the group has a structure that allows questioning the frame, if the group has a structure to allow mentalizing, where are you coming from? Is that perception a mentalizing shortcut? Are you using psychoequivalence? Feeling equals truth. Are you using teleological mode? One behavior equals everything about you. Are you using rabbit holes where you're going to describe a giant mental map of feral lotus and you're just going to flood this rabbit hole of nonsense? And if I don't get it, it's my fault, not your fucking rabbit hole psychic bubble mode. That's what they call it. So bubble mode of a bunch of mental models and then link all that into truth. If we had like mentalization as a way to build up basic ego reality testing, maybe that is a missing link. So what is that?
What is mentalizing?
We have to think about, why is this person asking this question now? And we work that out by working out what's going on in their mind. You know, what's behind that question? What's in their mind that makes them ask the question? What's in their mind that makes them behave like this? It's understanding.
So even here, there's space to interrogate the person that's accusing you, to be curious, but then the person that's accusing you of moral outrage can just stonewall. So they can have a counter. They can stonewall and say, no inquiry allowed. And they just double down on moral outrage and say, you don't trust me because of this, and they hate you to your guts more. So they can still counter. But if the group norm is to allow people to keep the inquiry going, and we have more skill to try to keep the inquiry going. So how are we sure we know this is everything? Let's get all the details before we get into a witch hunt. But if the group has learned that getting into a witch hunt for being on the receiving end is fun, so then oh, let's celebrate, take down the parent figure or whatever. But if you create this norm, or you have a groups which have this norm, you're building this muscle yourself. So maybe even without the group norm, you can slowly keep trying to mentalize.
Like this, it's understanding both ourselves and what's going on in our minds, what might make us do things, and actually when we're with someone else, what's going on in their mind that makes them behave or ask the questions they're asking.
The recent stuff of interpretations and transference and projection identifications trying to say, can we mentalize somebody who's triggered in discharging, where they're coming from? And then can we call it out, or is there a way to not join the split? Because their transference script is going to be, you agree with me or you don't agree with me. Both things are a pass roll. So the magical high road is trying to get in the middle and sabotage their double bind trap. But I think that's too complicated of a goal. So mentalization might be easier path.
Ask the questions they're asking.
We tend to make a lot of trouble for others and ourselves when we're unable to see alternative reasons for others' behavior, in this case a yawn.
What's in their mind that makes them behave like this?
Mentalizing is the ability to mind other minds. It's to understand misunderstandings and to see oneself from the outside and others from the inside.
It's that simple, but is it that simple? Is it easy to mind other minds when they're in moral outrage and hating you to your core, claiming they have a spear to the heart pain while they're spotlighting you and digging a spear into your heart while they're blaming you, while they're doing the exact same technique on you? So isn't that a clever BPD-like attack?
Oh, it's very disarming. It's a very good attack.
Yeah.
It's like a convincing act.
Well, it's a convincing act because it's happening. Except they're doing it. But spotting that double bind on the fly is hard because that's abnormal
But it comes from a childlike place as well, or it feels like it.
That's the regression part. That's why
Yeah.
when we say regression, we sort of talk down on people saying they're regressing, and that's sort of infantile. But regressive defenses are faster. Regressive defenses are purer. They're faster. They're unfiltered. They're probably more effective.
Yeah, because the one who's receiving it is also going to regress, whether you want it or not. It's very difficult to stay into a grounded position when you receive.
I'd go a step further and say it almost pulls out of me a parent sort of role. I think there's a transference or a counter transference where when I'm on the receiving end, I go into some kind of mode, like a parent mode or something.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Well, that's
That
the
really
transference,
goal?
Trot. Yeah.
That's the goal.
But it feels to me like the parent role I did when I was a child. That sort of. So not like I'm a mother now. I
Parentified child mode.
yeah, far more that than it almost never occurs that I feel like this pull from the mother I am right now, like that adult role. No, it's always this childish. So that's why what I mean with it makes us regress too.
Well, what if it's not just making you regress, it's making you reopen unfinished grief or roles that you haven't integrated or reassigned? So if
Yeah.
as a child, you played this role and you had this trauma bond, and then somebody else who has a trauma bond is able to reverse engineer your script in addition to matching their script. So they're looking for a new parent, and then you played a parent for your parent.
That
So then
Qantas
trauma
Club thing,
bond.
Ellie and me, was exactly that. That was like me talking to my mother.
And it's a trauma bond where they don't even have to script it. They just need to bring up the same emotion
Yep.
that reminds you of your mother. Their mind will come up with the words to make it make sense. And then you'll also say, this feels like my mother. And then your body will act out the same behaviors because it's unfinished grief. It's emotions that possess you, take you over, and you reenact the same pattern from childhood.
Yeah, it's inappropriate for me to be her parent, but that's what happened.
But if you had mentalization, if you could mind her mind as separate, if you could understand the misunderstanding she's projecting parent onto you or trying to trigger parent onto you, and if you could see yourself from the outside where you were repeating it, and you could see her from the inside where she's projecting her inside stuff, would that make it less chaotic if you had these mentalization muscles?
I did say at one point, how the hell was I supposed to know that when she went off on some tangent?
No, she had no answer for that.
There's no answer.
But this ability would be very helpful. I doubt that I can do it while it's going on. So I think I would need time later on to mentalize it, and maybe I get quicker during what's going on. I'm not sure.
But if you had somebody else, co-historians and other mentalization practitioners, to prompt
that
you,
would be helpful. Yeah.
could that
for
be
sure.
a collective effort to build ego reality testing on the fly using mentalization pointers?
Yeah, I
Because
would love it.
mentalization is just an add-on to psychoanalysis and secure attachment. So if you had this from a secure attachment figure, from a parent, then you can go out into the world and you can navigate gaslighting a lot easier. You have a more stable epistemic trust instead of trauma bonding and gaslighting, which is like a war on epistemic trust. It's trying to constantly create epistemic mistrust. You're constantly doubting your read of things. And then once you get triggered, then they use that as more evidence for the trauma bond.
Yeah, that completely makes sense.
So building these skills, mind other minds, understand misunderstandings, and see ourselves from the outside and see the other from the inside.
What's in their mind that makes them behave like this? You're trying to help them maintain mentalizing whilst actually reworking the trauma experiences.
See there. So in the midst of reworking the trauma, in the midst of being triggered, that's when you try to work on mentalizing. That's when it really matters. And that's where you need other people, or that may be where other people are the most useful. When you're triggered, if you have trusted others that can try to work on these skills, then you build epistemic trust, ultimately because you have the skill yourself, not outsourcing it to somebody else, or outsourcing to your superego, or outsourcing to your future self, or whatever.
They have to maintain the mentalizing. Help them be able to keep themselves on track, keep themselves online.
Online instead of regressed, on track.
Whilst they're then presenting the trauma experience. And we do this in actually a group rather than individually, so that they're doing it with people who have the same and similar experience. They have to maintain the mentalizing in actually a group, maintain the mentalizing.
Now, what causes the trauma? The trauma is that complexity.
I had a lot of clients who've had PTSD, and without exception, every single one of them was induced by one form of malevolence or another. They have to develop a very sophisticated philosophy of good and evil to get out of it, because they have a worldview in which.
So moral philosophy has been a pointer that's been used, but maybe the foundation of moral philosophy is epistemic trust. What the fuck is going on? So you can't trust your read of what's going on, and you're seeing super demons and heroes all over the fucking place because you're regressing or whatever. Your moral philosophy is worthless. You have to have a stable base to assess the players, what's happening. And you have to trust your read of what's happening.
Which those things don't really exist. There's no such thing as pure malevolence. Well, that's fine unless you encounter it. And then as soon as you encounter it, you won't know what to do.
Pure malevolence, I would try to reframe as an experience with somebody who causes you to self-betray yourself. And self-betrayal is you give up your epistemic confidence and you give it up to a possession of a past role, or you chase after the other person. You give up your interest. You get hijacked here. You focus on the person that attacks you as the evil person, but the injury is you've collapsed your epistemic authority. This is self-betrayal. You've given up ego reality testing. You've given up your stability to be in the world. And then you put your center of the universe on the abuser, the next abuser, and you forget to work on your ego reality testing, your epistemic confidence. So then as an adult, if you get flooded, you're going to regress and act like a kid again, because you have no epistemic foundation. The foundation is never again. I'm going to fight. I'm going to make the abuser the offense, whatever, I'm going to make that the center of my universe.
And then you won't be able to get on with your life. You'll do nothing but think about that and think about it and think about it and think about it.
It'll haunt your nightmares.
It'll disrupt your sleep. It'll put you into a permanent state of preparation for action. Because the part of your brain that's detected that, which in my estimation, by the way, is the same part, at least in part, that detects snakes. It's the same damn circuit. Once it's seen something like that, it is not going to let you go till you figure it out. And that's basically what post-traumatic stress disorder is.
So your attention is captured to the moment you lost epistemic trust, or you gave up your soul, or you self-betrayed yourself, and then you fixate on the cause of that because you want your epistemic trust back. You want to stop self-betraying yourself, but by the more you're attacking and going after the person that reminds you, or the new person that reminds you of your self-betrayal, the more you're still self-betraying yourself. Because you're giving up your power. Even though it feels like you're all powerful when you're like resentful and trying to destroy the next proxy figure for your original abuser. Welcome, Holly. We're trying to cover epistemic trust or epistemic injury. I don't know what we're covering. Try to catch up.
The major problem is reality is so complicated. It has so many layers and so many interconnected causal links that it's complex beyond comprehension.
This is a reality of reality. So when we hear a news story, it's a simplification of reality. So Jeff talking about one fragment and is like, oh, Australia had all these fires. Maybe it was all blowing up. That was because it was a simplification of a complex causation. And somebody who's on the ground, who's living around the fires, Brad has more context of the fire, so he offered a broader picture of reality. Nature, by definition, is complex beyond measure.
Your job, in large part, is to understand it, but also not to become overwhelmed by it, because you have to simplify it down to the point where you can sort of think about one thing and do one thing. And so you have to screen all of that out.
This is what journalistic integrity is supposed to do. It's supposed to screen all the fucking noise, not flood us with so much noise that we can't navigate it. Not give us a giant fire hose. And then they can flood us more with like, oh, go hire BetterHelp and all these other therapies if you're feeling anxious. Don't worry that social media and news is making you anxious. Because it's flooding you with too much information you can't navigate.
And so you have to screen all of that out so that the complexity doesn't overwhelm you when you're attempting to do anything simple, even to look at yourself in the mirror. Part of the problem your brain is always facing is, what can I ignore? And the answer to that is, well, you need to ignore almost everything. You need to ignore almost everything. So the old idea was...
And what does flooding do? What does Spirit to the Heart do? You can't ignore it. I will flood you, and this is the greatest pain. It's killing your ability to ignore it. It's killing your ability to take time and say, I need more information. I need to figure out what's happening.
You were very much conscious of the environment, period, which you're not. And then the second idea was, while you're being conscious of the environment, if anything changes radically, you will definitely focus your attention on it. And what turned out to be the case...
That's the back door. We can't injunction our way out of this back door. Or I guess you could, but that would come at a giant cost if you kill your surprise instinct.
You will definitely focus your attention on it. The idea was, while you're being conscious of the environment, if anything changes radically, you will definitely focus your attention on it.
So if someone floods the room with dopamine, if someone floods a giant overreaction and says moral outrage, our attention is driven to follow it. How are we going to disable that reflex? We can judge a reflex, but we might need to temper it, so we could probably slow it down. But trying to just judge ourselves and say, let's not react when someone floods intensity, that would be tough.
And what turned out to be the case is, well, you're not very conscious of the environment, and radical things can happen, and you won't notice them unless they interfere with what you're doing.
So maybe an aim, if you have an aim, if you remembered your aim, you could counterbalance a surprise. Is that how they play? Is that what defense tries to do in offense? So, the offensive player has the goal, but if the defense can knock that guy out of rhythm, if the defense can get the offensive guy to want to beat the defender instead of stay on point, so then this is offense is trying, you stay on your game, you stay on your aim. Defense is, I'm going to try to break your rhythm and get you off the aim. And if you're just a little off flow, then I messed up your game for this game. Next game, you can try to get into offensive rhythm.
So something that emerges that interferes with what you're doing that you don't expect, you will instantly orient towards and concentrate on.
That's what a asshole trash-talking defender does. Pay attention to me. I'm going to do everything I can to be an obstacle for you, to get in your fucking head. And then offensive player is trying to stay in the game and says, I want to score the goal. And then as me scoring means you're a fucking loser. And since we don't play sports that much, we're not dealing with this constant physical wrestling. So maybe we get stuck in roles. We forget that that these are instincts.
So it isn't anomaly or novelty that attracts your attention. It's the unexpected disruption of the relationship between your behaviors and the desired outcome of those behaviors.
That's a long sentence. It's a disruption between your behaviors and your expected results of the behavior.
Of the relationship between your behaviors and the desired outcome of those behaviors.
Ah. So if you have an aim, and your aim is just to learn, if your aim is just to get epistemic trust, then can there be disruption? But if your aim is to get connection, or your aim is to have orderly stuff and no one get negative, whatever, that can be disrupted. So what we can control is our aim. If we control our aim with measured, lowered expectation, then maybe we'll get less surprise. At the same time, if I'm a defender and I want to fuck with you, I will try to figure out your aim and I'll just try to disrupt it. So then I'll still be able to hack your attention system if it's a war on epistemic trust.
The thing that you see, which in this particular schema would be the computer, is nested inside all of these systems or has other systems nested inside of it. One of the things that's worth considering, as long as things are going according to how you want them to go, you can really pretend that the world is unbelievably simple. All the world consists of is those few things that you're doing in your little bounded perceptual frame, and everything else is zero. And then, unfortunately, now and then, the hypothesis that everything else is zero is radically wrong, like when your computer crashes, and then you actually for a while have to deal with at least some of the complexity that's actually there, and that's usually extremely anxiety-provoking. So, you know, you can imagine the same situation is while you're in your nice smooth car, and you're on the highway, and all of a sudden, you know, you hear a horrible grinding noise, and smoke comes out of the back, and you're pulled over to the side. Well, what was merely a means of getting from point A to B in comfort, like 2 seconds ago, is now a collection of extremely troublesome parts, none of which you know anything about, plus it's disrupted your day, plus it's disrupted your pocketbook, plus you have to now deal with a bunch of people who are going to tell you what's wrong with your vehicle and maybe
Bad
fix
news.
it for some completely unknown amount of money and with dubious utility. And so poof, the car turns into that. Complex beyond comprehension. It's almost impossible to overestimate the degree to which we live within a world that's bounded by expectations and desires, and how much time we spend keeping everything that's complex away from us so that we don't have to deal with it. Reality is so complicated, complex beyond comprehension.
So if reality is complex beyond comprehension, when we split and we regress, that could just be evidence that reality is too complicated. It's not time to punish ourselves because we're regressing. It's time to rebuild what the fuck is happening. Or it's time to rebuild what was my aim. So epistemic trust is one thing, I think, for core attachment issue. And then what's my aim? Maybe that's number initiative and autonomy. Is that purpose? Okay, maybe that's purpose. So if you can stay on point, what is my purpose, and make your purpose simple, then that can counter somebody that floods you with a chaos flood. This is a hard sell. This is argument against self-abandonment. So many trauma survivors and codependents they constantly self-abandon. So if you jump and you want to be scolding the other person, you're chasing them and you want to be their parent, you're abandoning your aim. You're giving up your purpose. And when you give up your purpose, then you're actually negate yourself. You sort of feel powerful. I don't know how to sell that otherwise. Welcome, Alicia. We're sort of in the middle of the presentation, so actually we're closer to the beginning. Follow along if you have any questions, throw it in the chat or jump on in. So if we can stay on our aim and we can have will, these two things, then that could counterbalance somebody who's flooding a bunch of gaslighting, outrage, whatever epistemic warfare they're trying to give you. That's sort of this pointer from 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago.
Should, right? So not getting into that loop.
Well, if you should not should, you're still shooting. Yeah. The way out of shooting is to have a target. If you're shooting, you're saying don't do something. You got to have a do something. That's the way out of shooting. I need a target. I need an aim. Also, when you say I shouldn't do stuff, isn't it an authority figure that told you that? So then you're repeating an authority figure's advice on how to stay safe. So you're using somebody else's injunction and silencing your own ego because you got superego hijacked by the system. The system says set boundaries and don't do this and all these rules to stay safe. But the rules to stay safe, are they aligned with your purpose? Are they aligned with your will? Are they helping you build competence? Or are they training you to be a good slave? Instead of don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, that's not an aim. That's an avoidance strategy. It's useful, but you need to have a target. Go try to drive and just tell the GPS, don't go here, don't go here, don't go here. See how your GPS is going to work.
Yeah, tell the GPS, I don't want to go to McDonald's, and see what happens.
And see how much work you have to say. I don't want to go here, don't want to go here, and just see if you can get the GPS to guide you somewhere.
That would take
I
a
want to
very
go on this freeway,
very
we'll
long
just
time.
You see? The GPS will be crippled. We're telling our brain's GPS, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. The brain can't navigate that.
No.
The way out of shooting is to have a target, have a target, have a target. But then people are doing shooting and whatnot. It's like, don't do this, don't do this. Then that might be the emotional landmines.
And then with this minefield, on a daily basis, what you have to do, run all the way around your own minds. Oh, circuitous route. And then with this minefield, on a daily basis, what you have to do, run all the way around your own minds. Oh, circuitous route. And then terror with this minefield, of negative emotions on a daily basis, in yourself and in others. Terror of negative emotions in yourself and in others. Terror of negative emotions in yourself and in others. And then with
So if you orient yourself just towards the caregiver's negative emotions, that's the self-abandonment. That's the loss, the attachment cycle break. And then if you're filled with resentment and you just want to take it out on the next person that betrays you, you're still not trying to find yourself. Not trying to find rebuilding of your epistemic security. Will this be a sell on how to do it? Probably not, but maybe.
Epistemic trust. If you've had caregivers who are basically trustworthy, then you develop this ability to discern who's a privileged source of information that you should believe and who is someone that you should probably disbelieve.
That's teaching who to trust and who to distrust. But if your caregiver was distrusting or so doubt all the time, you don't have the foundation he's talking about. In-person meetings, supposedly Jeff Naveen, he has parents that he talks to and he trusted. So of all the fucked up other people at the in-person who had poor parent relationships, Jeff had the most secure parenting.
And so epistemic trust and epistemic distrust, epistemic meaning knowledge, who we take in knowledge from, this faculty is really, really important for the survival of the species. So what happens if our early caregivers were not trustworthy? If we didn't have a secure attachment and we basically learned that we had to be very, very cautious about taking in information from other people because we could get hurt and it could mislead us. So this type of client who's had these kinds of early experiences goes into a situation of what we call epistemic hypervigilance, where they're...
A nice long word. Epistemic hypervigilance. So instead of just hypervigilance, let's say epistemic hypervigilance. And what if epistemic hypervigilance is like, what the fuck is going on? Where's the safety? Am I safe? Who's safe? Who's in danger? Everywhere you go, you're just constantly searching for basic grounding. Basic knowing. Can I know what's going on? Or where's the next gaslighting coming? Can I just have some sort of stable epistemic grounding?
Working models about themselves and the world are very resistant to change. Basically, they develop a fixed... This type of client who's had these kinds of early experiences goes into a situation of what we call epistemic hypervigilance, where their working models about themselves and the world are very resistant to change. Basically, they develop a fixed model and then they hold on to it.
I would say it's because the world is complex. If you don't have epistemic stability, you need to hold on to a tank model of existence that simplifies the world or simplifies danger. And then when you see anybody that reminds you of never again abuse, then you can focus all your danger threat on that. And then this rigid model of the world, this terror of negative emotions.
Terror of negative emotions in yourself and in others. Terror of negative emotions in yourself and in others. I am safe back here. I am safe back here. Terror of negative emotions back here. In yourself and in others. Safe. Terror of negative emotions. Safe. I am safe.
That gets rigid. So you need co-historians to try to invite the crack baby out, to try to expand the map. That's the sort of hard sell for today.
When our difficult clients are having a hard time believing the kinds of experiences or things that we're saying in therapy, it's because they, on a biological level, feel that their basic survival is at stake. Once you understand this, you can also begin to think about what is necessary for these types of clients to restore the capacity for epistemic trust. It involves our learning to act like auxiliary secure attachment figures.
Co-historians, surrogate parents, stand-in adults to role model epistemic trust, to role model self-knowledge, to role model mentalization, so that you have a working ego reality tester, so you don't need to outsource that information. You don't need to give up your epistemic confidence so easily, because you have something, an internal good object, so you can be stable under chaos.
Or members of their tribe, showing them that we see them as separate individuals with their own separate needs and interests and personalities.
What's in their mind that makes them behave like this?
We are invested in their well-being and survival. Then this can lead to the reestablishment of epistemic trust in the relationship with you.
They have to maintain the mentalizing.
So as a practical tool on how to get epistemic trust, you have the basics of mentalizing, minding other minds, understanding misunderstandings, and seeing yourself from the outside and seeing others from the inside. Then that makes other people's and your behaviors more predictable. So then you don't have to waste all this energy trying to navigate chaos. You can mentalize other people. Let's go here.
And the primary harm to their capacity as knowers, epistemic injury. You're perceived as someone.
So this is the dynamics of epistemic warfare, or epistemic injury, gaslighting, crazy making.
One who is not capable innately and inherently, not capable of knowing, and should not be attended to or listened to.
So the abuser, or the person who's triggered, who's regressing, they will deny the 5 A's, so they will not attend to sadness, they will not accept your fear, they will not appreciate your shame, they will not give affection for your passion, and they will not allow your sense of justice, your need for belonging. Or they'll do a combination or all of these.
Capable of knowing and should not be attended to or listened to.
So the reference to the spear to the heart So when the offensive spirit of the heart was given to Brad, he wasn't seen as capable of knowing or being intended to. He was being projected as a teleological, one action, one behavior is all of you. And then her truth was psychic equivalence, one feeling of emotion of pure pain. My grief makes it totally true, and you're the one at fault. Denying Brad the 5 A's while flooding the space with this stuff.
It is a negation of who you are. Because if I take away your cognition, what is left? Dysregulated emotions in chaos.
And regression to childhood parts. I take away your thinking, you regress to childhood trauma that feels the same. And then you can judge yourself for regressing. But you're human. We're all human. This is how humans work. As a counter today, if we can learn how to mentalize together, and then we can try to build some epistemic trust, we can rebuild the basic trust of security, of knowing what's happening and what's not happening. Instead of being in psychosis and delusions, worrying about childhood stuff is going to re-happen. All this stuff.
Terror of negative emotions. This minefield in yourself and in others. Terror you have to of negative emotions the way in yourself and in others. Minds. Oh, circuitous route. And then with this minefield.
So gaslighting, instead of just crazy making, practically gaslighting destabilizes epistemic stability, knowing. And if you don't know, then you're going to have fear. And you're not going to think you matter because no one's seeing you're not known. And then you don't know if there's danger or safety. So attention and acceptance are out the window.
Epistemic injury. The act of disbelieving someone is the act of negating them. This is the primary harm. The secondary damage occurs as a consequence of the primary harm. There's a general loss of what is known as epistemic confidence, epistemic authority. This is exactly what gaslighters do in gaslighting.
They cause epistemic damage. So your confidence of knowing or guessing or your intuition, that gets negated. And that gets overridden by the spirit of the heart or the group or whatever.
They make you doubt your capacity to know.
Isn't that the fundamental of gaslighting and psychological abuse, emotional abuse? Doubting what you know, doubting what is happening. And then you try to counterbalance by trying to counter-argue them with a defense. But with gaslighting, the person that is the aggressor first has the advantage.
You're arguing with reality. That's a real fuck up. How can you argue reality?
Well, that's...
I mean, arguing reality is a concept which is ridiculous because reality is reality. So I'm not putting that in very good words, but that's sort of my angle of it.
Isn't that also why the early betrayal is so painful? Or that's complicit? So if you as a child had to survive by joining the shared fantasy, and then you were superimposed by the fantasy story, then they're arguing against what's reality that seems obvious to you, and you have to slowly fall into the shared fantasy.
But I stopped buying into the shared fantasy of my family at a very young age. That was problematic. As you
But
can
that was
imagine.
problematic,
Yeah.
right? So when
I'm
it was
trying to argue
problematic,
with-
did you have to create other coping strategies to deal with the problematic reactions by you not joining? Or you still have to navigate their chaos, whether or not you're joining their shared fantasy, because they're not living in shared reality. So you have to somehow predict their behavior. So you have to somehow map their arguing with reality.
It's terrifying. You think you're going mad, especially if there's more than one.
So does that go into mentalization? So you can't really mind their minds because their minds are flooding, arguing with reality. And then you can't really understand them from the inside. So then you have this chaos bomb of one person, but not just one person, multiple people. So that takes away your space to explore reality or to explore your creativity, because you have to navigate chaos here, shared chaos. So even if you had the strength to block it, you're still your space, your creative space to explore and develop a self and to build stronger epistemic foundation, that's still being invaded. Now, granted, shadow-wise, maybe because you've had to detect betrayal and deception, you could translate that to your current work. So you develop a skill that other people didn't have, because other people were just chasing after, where do I get ice cream? Where do I play here? So they're just wandering around being kids exploring stuff for fun, while you're navigating a bunch of crazy people. So that develops more of a radar. So then you can translate that to your work.
I do.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. Because the amount that's invested in the fantasy is significant. And even when presented with evidence from the Reserve Bank of Australia on a piece of paper, no, that's something else. It's really interesting. It does make you question your sanity on occasion.
So you might be doing excess checking here and here, and that causes other problems.
Well, being right is not, it's a concept of being right. And I think that's a bit of a drug. So the need
Wouldn't
to be
being right be like a drug because it's like safety?
Yeah, because it stops you going insane.
And if you have a lot of epistemic injury, then you don't have to worry about all the epistemic damage if you can hold on to righteousness. It's a drug against
All this other
the
crap.
superego gaslighting hijack, the superego hijack. If you have certainty, excess certainty, righteousness, then you can just block any of the superego hijack. You can block the gaslighting.
It's interesting now that I have a co-founder and a couple of journalists that work with us, and we all see the same reality, but the world we live in does not. It's very interesting, because once you share a reality with people, it becomes a very, very solid, comfortable, realistic place to live. I quite enjoy it, to be honest.
That might be some form of secure tribe, secure attachment.
Yeah.
So having a group to retreat to where you can have co-historians and some level of shared epistemological grounding.
In fact, our two co-historians are journalists in their late 50s, have been around the block a few times. Incredibly refreshing experience.
And that's people that are journalistically trained.
They write
maybe more classically journalistically
old
grounded.
school print media journalists, a dying art.
We need more of that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, it's an eldership. It's a wisdom. It has that adult feel to it, where the rest of this has a very childlike feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the
Loss
flooding,
of
the moral outrage, the game, the Stonewall, my filter would say that's the childish part and the other side's an adult part. Or maybe it's fish and chameleon. Sorry.
well, the adult part is a reality tester, a healthy ego that helps you navigate shared reality. A child part is a superego that's posing as an adult, taking up the role of the ego because the ego's been silenced and the world is shrunk.
They demolish your epistemic confidence. They convert you from epistemic authority into an agent of confusion. You're too stupid to know. So it's a judgment on your character, on who you are. Epistemic injury. The more the victim is denied, the more she's invalidated, the more she becomes exactly that. It's a process of social engineering.
This is the perverse nature. The more it's repeated, the more you're onslaughted with that social conditioning, the more you fall into the frame. And the counter is mentalization. If you can stay in inquiry and you can challenge the assertions, if you can ask about the assertions and the conclusions that are flooded upon you, then there's some space to not fall into the gaslighting. But if it's just a double bind that keeps getting thrown at you, then every reaction you have is twisted to validate the conclusion. Then there's no way out.
Restructuring the other person's identity and personality. The condition for parental love is that you never become an individual. You never become you. Again, this betrayal trauma involves silencing of your authentic voice, and which causes a deep sense of epistemic injustice, epistemic injury. You do not conform to the group's overarching narrative. The group would penalize you by ignoring you, by doubting you, by rendering you ineffective. Epistemic injury. Its aim is to block the less powerful from the capacity to communicate what they know, to silence them.
This is also the same aim of superegos that get outer critic. They want to silence and hide inner children, which are minorities. And this same dynamic plays out in my observation. The elite of the superego and people with better voices for their superego will both silence their inner children and silence other people's inner children. And for me, since I don't have superego language, I keep running into this battle. People's superego have better language, and then I just fall into the frame because I don't have that narrative shit.
Is to block the less powerful from the capacity to communicate what they know, to silence them. victims of abuse are now the minority.
So you get trapped with the soft torture. Trapped, boxed in, no win. That's a double bind. Punish protests. Everything you say back is punished. A dig. Your instincts are strangled. Your being human, your being limited is judged as a deficiency. Your grief is ghosted because there's no space for it. The other person's grief is flooded. I have a giant spear to the heart. I have giant moral outrage. That's all the room can hold. By default, or by math, your grief is ghosted. You don't even see it. And then if you listen to me instead of your instincts, I will give you the path to safety. So abandon your instincts and your desire for trust and care. And then you being a self, you having a difference is an offense to my soul. So I will murder your soul and humanity with lovely superego language or mean girl talk or whatever. I will phrase things to soft torture you. Where is this soft torture? Visual. Here's one.
So narcissists and psychopaths would make every effort to deny the victims of narcissistic abuse a voice, to not allow them to communicate, to silence them, to interpret or reinterpret their experiences in ways which render the abuse palatable and legitimate and acceptable and understandable, perhaps by victimizing or self-victimizing.
She's playing victim.
This denial of voice, this happens especially when there's a risk of rising self-awareness and self-consciousness.
Rising self-awareness, rising self-consciousness, secrets getting exposed. People will side with the abuser. Defenses will side with the abuser, even here. Because it's pre-verbal. People aren't navigating, if there's an intensity trauma flood, the survival instincts that worked as a child, the resentment, whatever, that kicks in. There isn't mentalization yet. That's what the argument is today. If there's space to inquire, to update the map, then there's a choice to do something different. Otherwise, family secrets coming out, people support the aggressor.
Victimizing.
She's playing victim.
This denial of voice, this happens especially when there's a risk of rising self-awareness and self-consciousness. There's a shared, as I said, social imagination, and the interpretive resources, they're part of this social imagination. The elite blocks access to these shared tools of social interpretation and communication.
So a support group, the elite or the people that are playing the game, they're going to try to control the interpretation. Same game as the controlling the narrative. And if there isn't a bias for mentalization, if there isn't a bias to try to make space for dialogue or rewatches or videos, so you can have something that's more objective, something that can counter controlling the narrative, then the game of controlling the narrative is going to win. That's also the game that childhood, family secrets, we all grew up falling into the aggressor who controlled the narrative, and we tried to attack the unfair narrative control. We tried to counter the defined game, one versus the other. But there's no winner in the defined game. Even the one who wins is also constantly doing a job. They constantly have to define and discharge, so it's not really a win. it's a lifetime job of trying to fight reality, trying to battle, trying to follow the path of sophistry.
Isn't that the point, though, to keep you in the game? Isn't that one strategy?
Well, somebody has a lot of self-disgust, and they don't have social skills to trust secure attachment, then attachment only comes through manipulation or transaction. And if I'm good at the defined game and I'm good at controlling the narrative, I will use my skill at controlling the narrative to keep you in the game, to keep you in a trauma bond, sure. To keep you in a master-slave relationship.
Keep you in my frame, too.
Defined game, that's a frame game. Oh, framing. So Gonzalo's gone, but he wanted more framing metaphors. I think he shared this clip and I shortened it.
Reframing. This whole thing is about reframing. So
his editing skills are pretty good because he is using camera skills and he's changing from different angles to sort of mimic cinema. But his framing of changing different camera angles is guiding your attention. So he's using a lot of camera framing angles to create artificial intimacy.
So the other night, we just sat down for about 2 minutes to have dinner, and Freya would just keep getting distracted. She was being difficult. She kept leaving. She kept coming back. So she gets off her chair and she falls down on the ground and she kind of hurts herself. It wasn't a big drop or anything, but she really wanted to get our attention. Reframing.
So Freya is a 5-year-old that threw a little tantrum before eating. Her reframe was falling on the ground like in pain.
So she was like, I really hurt myself. Reframing.
So she was playing victim. So kids learn it early. If you just get angry at someone playing victim, Freya doesn't care.
What most of us would say is, hey, stop messing around. You didn't hurt yourself. Reframing. Get up, get back to the table.
And that's a counter reframe. So if Freya's acting like, oh, I'm hurt, then you can insult the reframe and say, that's fake. You're playing whatever, you can override it.
You didn't hurt yourself, and sometimes that will just blow out of proportion and they'll cry even more. But then I thought, hey, why don't I just go all in on her pain and completely validate her? Reframing.
So he's selling another point to say, let's fall into the frame or give her attention. Let's try a counter frame instead of just running over the frame or trying to get her to fall into the group frame.
She is trying to get my attention. How about I give my full attention to her, completely reframing? So I looked at her and I said, oh my goodness, you really do look like you're in a lot of pain. We're going to have to do an examination on you now. So I laid her down, got the little medical kit out, and I started to examine and just kind of test things. Her face just lit up. She was smiling and laughing. That was about maybe 5 minutes. And before you knew it, she was back up at the table, energized. Her whole attitude had changed. This whole thing is about reframing. You have to be able to reframe the situation no matter what the context is in order for you to just explore other options that are way less coercive and fear-driven.
And fear-driven. So.
And fear-driven.
So what if we who've been conditioned self-betrayal through superego hijack, we're being coercive through fear-driven. Epistemic warfare is trying to use fear and attention capture to coerce other people to fall into our frame or to escape their frame. As a byproduct, we learn we don't have the creative energy to counter frame, to think of different frames. We only know fear-driven, coercive, superego injunctions. And sometimes people want that, so then it's even more hard to be creative. People want their superego, they want something with pure certainty, pure authority. or punishment. Because that's less thinking. Thinking means we have to go look at all the chaos and complexity and epistemic muscle. So until we're used to this mentalizing muscle, most people probably default to superego preference.
And fear-driven. Because the real problem isn't that she doesn't want food, it's because that she's in a state of mind where she needs either attention or connection or something else. This whole thing is about reframing. State of mind where she needs either attention or connection or something else.
But we have to be able to mind other minds and see if someone's acting out. What's the need? What's the fear? What's the 5 A's that are unmet? Can we put words to their inner children, and can we try to reframe it to address some of these 5 A's to disarm the defense? You disarm the defense, and then the inner child, if the inner child is satisfied, then the defense drops. And the person's more cooperative. Or you can be coercive and fearful and try to make the inner child scared to death. But typically you attack the defense, you don't attack the inner child. And the defense is it's not a human being, so you can attack a defense to the rest or whatever, and it comes back. If you free the inner child, then the defense sort of can fall away. Maybe that's the theory. That can be a little hard. What are we at? We're at 9:16. Running out of time.
There is a whole world of linguistic communication that just occurs at this implied level, and the types of things that can be implied are almost endless. You can also imply social status or economic class or authority or lack thereof. A lot more things can be implied than we might have previously thought. It repaints what is just my interpretation of a situation, or at least potentially just my interpretation of a situation, which may or may not be any more epistemically justified than the person I'm disagreeing with, and makes it an objective truth.
This is mainstream now. People paint opinions in news and they present it like some universal objective truth, erasing your epistemic opinion, your ability to epistemically try to make sense of it yourself. We're bombarded by this.
Or makes it pretend to an objective truth. It's using the bells and whistles of a scientific, or at least semi-scientific process as a kind of personal propaganda machine. It makes the idea less questionable. It sometimes implies the speaker is on a moral high ground, and it certainly gestures at
Moral
epistemic
outrage.
authority, which, in this context, may be totally unearned. Say, for the sake of argument, I was trying to campaign for the mass elimination of puppies. I obviously could not just come out and say this, so I would probably start by recording biting incidents from large, dangerous dogs. I would call these canine aggression incidents. This term sounds pretty objective, but it also carries with it a certain kind of image. If you hear that term, you probably think of a big dog biting someone. And sure, that is how the usage of the term starts out. But then, as time goes on, I start just loosening the bounds of how I use the term. I will start recording serious barking as a canine aggression incident, and then I will record quieter and quieter barks in this way by smaller and smaller dogs.
Moving the target. So if I can get you to buy into outrage over a big thing, that's easy. And then I can slowly have the same outrage for a smaller target. It shifts the social standard.
And then, at long last, I would be able to point to the huge number of canine aggression incidents that I have recorded as evidence that dogs are dangerous and should be eliminated. Now, this is a pretty caricatured case, and I'm sure that we can all agree that I have misled people in how I've used language here. But Why is this? Well, part of it is that my label is already distorting things in a small way. I'm taking all kinds of dog behavior and putting it under the label canine aggression incident.
This is a defined game by trying to use labels or categories and then trap dogs in this example.
This abstract label conjures up a certain kind of image or prototype in people's heads, which is misleading when I then widen the bounds of the term, because when those bounds expand, the abstraction becomes more and more removed from the events on the ground, until I'm categorizing pretty not that troublesome dog behavior as aggression. This kind of linguistic maneuver works by playing on the discrepancy between the actual state of affairs in the world and the image that is conjured up in the listener when they hear a particular term.
That's what the news is doing, right? Or social media too.
Not that troublesome dog behavior as aggression. This kind of linguistic maneuver works by playing on the discrepancy between the actual state of affairs in the world and the image that is conjured up in the listener when they hear a particular term.
So if I present a media picture of something, it can conjure up an image and a conclusion in Jeff's head that Australia's had giant fires, which doesn't match the boots on the ground experience. And since it's fair game now, news is covering this, and other people and politicians are doing, everyone's allowed to use these distortions. And then we can say fact checking and all this stuff, but if the shared trust of honest reporting is gone, then it's just gone. If the shared trust has switched to sophistry.
Sophistry wants you to obey emotionally laden non-arguments. Whereas philosophy says, look, if I teach you first principles, you don't need me, you don't need anybody. You need to think for yourself. And sophistry is designed to make you dependent upon the approval or disapproval of the sophist. Sophistry fundamentally is the fear of being found out for your motives. A sophist wishes to infest you with misdirection and bewilderment and activate your fight or flight responses so that you do what the sophist wants. Like water going down a mountainside will find any path to get to the destination. Philosophy, of course, starts with definitions. So if you don't have definitions, then you have a big problem talking about anything. People who reject or refuse definitions or want to skate past them or jump over them are almost certainly sophists.
Or you have vague definitions that keep shifting, or a model that sort of keeps getting updated because that helps the sophist. And then if the definition is vague enough, then I can say, you don't understand the model. Go study harder.
So you try to break someone's perspective or argument down into its component parts. If they resist that process, they are a sophist. Sophists figure out what moves people emotionally. And what moves people emotionally is desire and fear, right? Desire to be thought well of and fear of being thought badly of. Because
social approval, disapproval.
We are bound together in the web of social approval, which is why philosophy tends to be so powerful and why sophistry is so effective. And so this idea that if you want to help the poor, got to have a government program, plays into people's desire to help the poor, of course, plays into people's desire to want to be thought well of. Well, if I oppose this government program, people are going to think I don't like the poor. It's going to make me look cold and mean. Therefore, yay, government program, right? So if somebody is not willing to break down their argument from first principles, then you're in the presence of a sophist, and you'll feel that pressure in your head and in your heart, and you'll feel a reluctance.
So if someone makes a claim against you, moral outrage, and if you can argue their first principles, you can argue the evidence behind the argument, then there's space. But if they're trying to flood you with superego stuff, they're going to try to block any attempts to ask or create a double bind if you were to challenge. Or not, it's not even you were to challenge, you're just like, why should I jump into your frame? What? Tell me more.
To ask for first principles. They're kind of casting this spell, right? There's a reason why magic is based on words and gestures, because sophistry is a kind of magic that can move mountains and create dams and have it rain gold upon the sometimes undeserving. They will distract, they will avoid, they will insult, they will roll their eyes, they will do all of the emotional tricks that somehow stamp you with the wagging finger mom
Guilty.
word inappropriate or something like that. Sophistry fundamentally is the fear of
Broken.
being found out for your motives. It's the fear of being found out.
But there's also duper's delight, so I don't know if it's that much fear. Ooh. Oh, we were supposed to cover mentalization. I guess I'll have to do that in the future. Ooh. Let's end it with 2 things. So this is poor mentalization.
I've been trying to reach out to you all day. Are we on for tonight? Jeez.
What? You can't catch me. You can't catch me. I'm Lance Moore. Touchdown, bitch. What? Pause.
Pause.
Oh, shoot. Keegan's been texting me. Sorry, dude. Missed your texts. I assumed we'd meet at the bar. Whatever. I don't care.
Reply.
Sorry, dude. Missed your texts. I assumed we'd meet at the bar. Whatever, I don't care. Whatever, I don't care.
I don't care. You took that
The
personal.
fuck is his problem?
Disapproval.
Do you even want to hang out?
Do you even want to hang out? Oh, that's considerate. Like I said, whatever.
Like I said, whatever? Fuck this guy! Jesus,
I don't
you
matter.
Are fucking priceless. Aww. You're the
one who's fucking priceless?
I don't matter.
This motherfucker right here. Oh, he wants to. Okay. Okay. You want to go
right now? Huh. Guess I could do that. Okay.
Okay, let's go. He said, okay. Okay, let's go. All right, you know what? You know what? You want to really
Do this now? Keegan, you nut. You're not putting me out.
Fuck yeah, let's do it. Oh, you fucking asshole.
First round's mine.
Oh, no. Oh, no, there ain't gonna be no rounds, asshole. It's gonna be a fucking street fight. This son of a...
Because tonight we gonna party.
Street fight.
Buddy! Like I said, first round's mine. A beer and a gimlet. For my partner, right? What's that?
I got you a baseball bat with nails in it.
Nails.
For my post-apocalyptic Jackie Robinson costume. How did you know?
Ho, ho, ho. So if there's more minding of minds and there's more context, then bam, you wouldn't have this. But with text and social and video and all these distorted informations, things get lost in translation. Then what do? We have to be free. K-pop demon hunters. Oh, there.
I try to hide, but something broke. I try to sing, couldn't hit the notes. The words kept catching in my throat. I try to smile, I was suffocating though, but here with you I can finally breathe. You say you're no good, but you're good for me. I've been hoping to change, now I know we can change, but I won't if you're not by my side. Why does it feel right every time I let you in? Why does it feel like I can tell you anything? All the secrets that keep me in chains and all the
sharing
secrets that
secrets.
might make me dangerous. You got a dark side, guess you're not the only one. What if we both try fighting what we're running from? We can't fix it if we never face it. What if we find a way to escape it? We could be free, We can't fix it if we never face it. Let the past be the past till it's weightless.
Oh, time goes by and I lose perspective. Yeah, hope only hurts, so I just forget it. But you're breaking through all the dark in me when I thought that nobody could. And you're waking up all these parts of me that I thought were buried for good. Between imposter and this monster, I've been lost inside my head. Ain't no choice when all these voices keep me pointing towards no end. It's just easy when I'm with you. No one sees me the way you do. I don't trust it, but I want to. I keep coming back to why does it feel right every time I let you in? Why does it feel like I can tell you anything? We can't fix it if we never face it. What if we find a way to escape it? We could be
Live.
We can't fix it if we never face it. Let the past be the past till it's weightless. So take my hand, it's
Floating in air.
Something broke. I couldn't sing, but you give me hope.
We can't fix it if we never face it. Let the past be the past till it's weightless.
Weightless. How do we get the past to be weightless? We need to watch K-pop Demon Hunters.
That's all, folks.